Mod A, Introduction, Short Version. Power and ambition are human qualities that can easily blind individuals from the truth. Shakespeare's 1592 historical play Richard III, hereafter known as R3, highlights Richard III's moral transgression to paint him as a tyrant who not only did not have the divine rights of the king, but tried to defy them, blinded by his ambition for the title. This villainous depiction reflects Shakespeare's propagandistic primary purpose to solidify Queen Elizabeth I's divine rights as a monarch. Resonating with this Machiavellian archetype, Al Pacino intends to reframe this play in his 1995 docudrama Looking for Richard, hereafter known as LFR. By mirroring the play but colliding with the form by adding his predicaments in his comprehension of the character, as well as the actor's interpretation of the characters and scholar's perception of his readings, Pacino investigates further into the humanistic purpose behind Richard's villainy, thus allowing his responders to understand that Richard's ambition-filled desires for power are more than just propaganda. Al Pacino's reframing of the play, therefore, works as a reflection of the universal condition of human duplicity. Paragraph 1. Contextualized by the political instability installed by the dynastic War of the Roses, Shakespeare critiques ambition as a defiance of divine fate, thus highlighting his propagandistic purpose in supporting the Tudor legacy. 1. Richard's opening soliloquy juxtaposes his self-proclaimed inability to prove a lover that inspires him to prove himself a villain, foreshadowing his inherent Machiavellian immorality as a result of his unbridled ambition's denial of divine providence. 2. Richard twists the prophecy that condemns him as the G that the murderer shall be, to ironically accuse his brother, George Clarence, eliminating him in order to become the Lord Protector of the princes, disguising his ambition as protection in order to lure the princes to the Tower. 3. Here, when Prince Edward asks his Lord Protector to bear with him, the young Duke of York uses the repetition of bear to say, "You mean to bear me, not to bear with me. Because I am little, like an ape, he thinks that you should bear me on your shoulders." Here, the double meaning of bear juxtaposes the prince's young, immature appearance with his mature wit. He uses simile to illustrate himself as, like an ape, to reveal that Richard is someone who benefits from the lowly position of bearing an ape on his shoulders rather than aspiring to be king. 4. Hence, Shakespeare uses the witty princes to show the innate dignity of those born into the divine right of kingship in contrast to the deformed, unfinished Richard III who ruthlessly manipulates others solely for his acquisition of power. 5. Thus, the prince's pun not only highlights their legitimacy, but also foreshadows the justice in Richard's eventual defeat at Richmond's hands, which, in turn, justifies Shakespeare's Queen Elizabeth I's divine rights as a monarch, as she is the descendant of Henry Tudor, Henry VII, Richmond. Paragraph 2. Al Pacino and ambition. Power and ambition are human qualities, and it is natural for individuals to strive for the acquisition of power. 1. Al Pacino collides with Shakespeare's justification of Richard III's monstrousness by opening his docudrama with an allusion to Shakespeare's The Tempest. Quote, "We are such stuff, as dreams are made on, and our little life, is rounded with a sleep." Unquote. The euphemism, rounded with a sleep, focuses on human limitations, which are then paradoxically ignored by human aspirations, signified through the diction of dreams, thus allowing Pacino to delineate that Richard's monstrousness is not unique, but a universal quality. To showcase this, Pacino reframes the storyline by opening with Queen Elizabeth's perspective rather than Gloucester's morally transgressive monologue, shifting focus off of his villainy. His narration, quote, "The Queen is worried," quote, quickly becomes a voiceover as the scene shifts to a handheld close-up of his older brother, King Edward IV, who is lying next to the Queen, thus enhancing looking for Richard's historical authenticity. 3. Pacino's narration transitions to a mise-en-scene of the prince's naive child actors in a demand shot. Their innocence amplifies the tragedy of their death, as it contrasts the ominous foreshadowing that, quote, "the only people left to inherit the throne are her 2 young sons." The diction of only and young, highlighting their vulnerability after Edward IV's death. Subsequently, Pacino's voiceover, quote, "My brother Edward is the king now," unquote, which blends into his conversation with his crew, quote, "and me, I am not the king. I wanna be the king. It's that simple," unquote, is captured in an offer shot that provides the responders with a first-person perspective on the film's Richard, allowing them to see his lack of complicated motivations for villainy. 5. This meta-theatrical form allows the director and actors to directly involve the responders in the interpretation of the play, allowing Al Pacino to dismiss any contextual difficulties that make Richard III foreign. Thus, the docudrama affirms the universality of ambition over time. Paragraph 3. Same point, but through the ending. Recontextualizing the performance of Richard III into Al Pacino's script discussions and debate about the interpretation of the characters and text allowed the responders to see Shakespeare not as foreign, but as accessible through such hybridity in its form. 1. Al Pacino's depiction of Richard's final night at Bosworth Field is dissonant from that of Shakespeare's, for he portrays guilt that makes him appear humanistic. This contrasts Shakespeare, who conveys the supernatural involvement that foreshadows Richard's defeat the next day. The ghost of Hastings in the play uses the repetition of bloody and guilty in, quote, "bloody and guilty, guiltily awake, / and in a bloody battle end thy days, ... and die." Here, though in the form of a ghost, Hastings, along with all the other ghosts that enter and exit the stage, curses Richard, creating a foreboding atmosphere that aligns the supernatural world with his downfall. However, Pacino offers reflexive commentary through voiceover that, quote, "he suspects all the people around him, and therefore he has no friends," unquote. This frames an interpretation that Richard, by eliminating the people who could be a threat to his kingship, has also ironically eliminated those who could potentially support him. 3. Hence, the implementation of the montage of the people who he'd killed, Queen Elizabeth, Clarence, his nephews, Hastings, and even the appearance of his death that is future dated, are accumulated to highlight the chaotic mind of Richard that is riddled with guilt. His conscience, which he describes as cowardly after being startled awake, is also shown in the montage of Al Pacino playing this scene in various different rehearsals, as well as in the form of production. This adds to the isolation he feels after murdering his family and allies. After adding empathetic humanity in the form of a nightmare riddled with guilt, he merges Richard III's final battle at Bosworth as if that evening is connected to the next morning, symbolizing that Richard did not sleep in angst, signifying that he is finally aware that, blinded by power ambition, He disregarded the truth of the great chain of being by violating the divine rights of the king. Conclusion. Despite its dissonant reframing of Richard's motivations, Pacino's docudrama resonates with R3 to reveal how, while context transforms meaning, it still portrays the same universal human conditions. Shakespeare's propagandistic construction of Richard as a tyrant contrasts with Pacino's humanist investigation, yet together, they enrich our understanding of ambition and duplicity, proving that textual dialogue maintains a text's relevance over time.